The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you, listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make a lot of noise, but when they move the world, they let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat about there. We'll let the edge. It's clear for pickup. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I'm your guest host, Eric Markham, giving Dave Scott a much needed and deserved night off. It's good to have you along for the ride on this Wednesday, June 28th, Thursday, June 29th if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. Hope you had a great day. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, as we are 7 nights a week. Let's welcome everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations. WQEE 99, Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We're live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KLTK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio. Remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station funded by you, the valued listeners. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music? Then rock with us to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly Guns N' Roses, currently Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. Also, you can check us out on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow Dave Scott at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. We're also on Radio Guide FM, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you go to patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radio. If you want to take part in the show tonight, sign into one of our chat rooms on our website by clicking Listen Live, on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, and on the UPRN chat room, and on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio and I will get your questions there as well. If you head up to our website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, you can go to the Spaced Out Radio store and pick up a t-shirt, poster, or an SOR sticker. Man, that's a mouthful, Dave. I don't know how you do that every night. Tonight's guest is, from a sense of nostalgia, one of the long-running scientific-type guests on the radio circuit. His name is David Adair. Good evening, David. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you doing, Eric?
Good to talk to you. Now, let's get some of the nostalgia out of the way first. A lot of our listeners have heard the story with Area 51. And you actually having experienced or witnessed the alien, with it like a Greyhound bus-sized power plant?
Correct.
Okay. But you've gone on from that. So that's not going to be the focus of today's interview. I want to talk about the current stuff you're doing. And I don't think a lot of people realize that there's a danger out there that isn't being publicized too much.
Oh, man.
Start out with telling us about the Carrington event, and let's work up from there.
A British astronomer named Joseph Carrington, back in September of 1859, he witnessed with his own eyes a flash from the sun, and he tracked it, and he found out that the Earth was hit that day by a CME, a corona mass ejection. Now, a CME is, you have to see this thing in space to believe it. It's like something out of Star Trek. It's a mass of charged proton particles coming off the sun. And the sun just flings it off like you take your fingers across your forehead and fling off a bead of sweat. Well, that's what the sun's doing. And it's rotating. These things just fly off in all directions. But this bead of sweat is 100 billion tons. Now, let me give you the size. That's the size and mass of Mount Everest. And it comes across space. It'll cover 93 million miles in somewhere between 12 and 14 hours. That's just below light speed. So imagine 100 billion ton mass coming at you nearly the speed of light. Well, that's a CME, and it happens all the time in our solar system with our suns and our planets. However, once in a while we get struck by a CME, and we did so in September 1859. Now, the only thing that was no CME has ever harmed any plants or animals. So what they really seem to really take out is anything electronic. So in 1859, the only thing that was electronic was the telegraph wire, which they promptly lost their telegraph wires. Variety of damage, everything from hot to melted to just popped or just quit working. And they had to stomp out a few fires, and that was it. Now, fast forward to 2017. If a CME comes in today, where's your main power grid? It's 40 feet in the air over your head on the telephone poles. And if that ain't bad enough, you've got the transformers. That's going to be the biggest problem. I don't know if you know this or not, but a transformer is filled with oil. That's so it can maintain the heat that comes through there from the charged electrons. So, unfortunately, when a CME comes in, it's a spike. It's a spike on nuclear steroids. It will come down through the lines. It will, well, first of all, what it does, it comes into Earth and it hits the Van Allen radiation belt. And then the CME will kind of split in half and curve around and collide on the backside of a point of impact. Then it cascades over the upper atmosphere and it comes down through the ionosphere, stratosphere, all the rest of the mesosphere, troposphere. So anyhow, it will cascade over the surface of the Earth. Now, in 1859, that night after it struck us, and the telegraph wires had their problem, that night the aurora borealis was so charged, it was seen from the equator, at the equator, from the North Pole to the equator, and the light was so bright that New Yorkers at 3 a.m. could read their newspapers by it. So that's going to be a spectacular-looking thing. But, and that's all pretty much happened in 1859. But if it would hit us now, well, people hear this all the time. Let me tell you something. This is not global warming or climate change or any other things that can be vague. This is really hard science. This is the actual physical stuff that happens with Mother Nature. And it's going to do it. And it don't give a damn if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or even an independent. It's going to do its thing. And it almost got us. The last one that went by, it wasn't one, it wasn't two, it was three. And it was July 23rd, 2012. And 3 CMEs in a perfect row, perfect storm with CMEs, come hurling at us. And it passed us only by 110,000 miles. Folks, that's half the distance between here and the moon. That's only 80,000 miles away from your geostationary satellites, ESPN. Those things just went by, and if they had hit, we would not be talking. We all would be dead. And it's not from the impact of the CME. The CME is not what kills you. It's what follows afterwards. And we did it to ourselves with our power grid. When the CME strikes, it'll come in over the land, cascading, and then that charged protons will meet up with our power grid. And when it goes through backfires through the system, you'll get spikes. It looked like a camera flash. And then what happens is most of those transformers are going to detonate like napalm. So now think of how many there are. It's just hundreds of millions of them. And they all detonate. You're burning from coast to coast. You cannot put them out. How can you? There's no electricity. The grid's gone. You can't run pumps to pump the water. Once the fire engines, if the fire engines even start, they will pump out their water, and that's it. Game over. And it's still burning. You can't call the police. Can't call the fire department. Can't call anybody. No 911. That's all gone. And you have no police. You have no National Guard. You don't even have a military helping you. So If that's not bad enough, then the next thing starts. Food and water runs out, and then sanitation stops. This is all happening in the same day. And you know what does survive, Eric? Guess what? About 400 million handguns and all the ammo. It'll come through perfectly fine. And so now you have 350 million Americans standing there in the dark, can't call anybody, no cell phone, no pages, no faxes, no modems. It's all gone. Everything's gone. Standing there in the dark, no food, no water, no sanitation, no one to call for help, and 350 million of you with handguns. What do you think's going to happen?
Oh, it's going to be nasty.
Well, I mean, you'll have societal collapse. And you don't have to believe me. Shoot, no. There's the National Intelligence Council of the U.S. intelligence community. It speaks for the entire U.S. intelligence community. And they wrote a paper called Global Trends 2030. And they said there are 8 black swan events. Now, a black swan event, if you haven't read the book, is it's a global civilization changer. It changes everything as you know it. Well, a CME is one of them, and EMP is another. Both of them are very similar. The EMP is electromagnetic pulse, which is charged out of a nuclear weapon right before it detonates. It'll build up this EMP charge, and then it goes off. And when it does, it takes out everything, like the CME from the sun. So man has his own version of it, EMP, and then Mother Nature has her version of it, CME, and both of them will take out the grid. But in their report, Global Trends 2030, there was multiple agencies that did the studies, and there's something really scary when all these agencies came up with the same numbers on the same conclusion. And when you get all these different agencies don't even like each other, and they all agree on the same thing, you better believe you can take it to the bank. So what they were saying in the EMP, which is not quite as bad as CME, but splitting hairs here, but the EMP Commission warned that given our current state of unpreparedness, within 12 months of a catastrophic EMP event, very similar to the CME, 90% of the total U.S. population, that's over 200 million Americans, would perish. You would die from starvation, disease, exposure, and societal collapse. And that's what the National Intelligence Committee just told the U.S. Intelligence Forum that then tells everybody. So,
well, David, I got a question. With the CME, the kind of radiation it sends, you said it doesn't harm living or organic matter. It's going to destroy electronic. Now, does it have to have? Does it have to have the wires to travel along, or just by virtue of its being there? Because I'm thinking, these lines have circuit breakers in them. Because the one in front of my house goes off about twice a month. But
and
is there anything that's going to stop that catastrophic current surge?
No. We do not have surge arresters. We do not have blocking devices. We do not have Faraday cages. And I can go down the list of all the things we don't have. Now, those devices I just named, we know absolutely sure for the last 50 years that those are reliable protections because we've installed them into the military system so the military would be able to function under an EMP. However, the rest of us out in society, good luck. You ain't got any of that. So, and by the time the military wouldn't even be able to help us. You give you an idea of the sheer magnitude of this thing. We lost about 5,000 people in 2011, and when that was bad enough, or not 2011, excuse me, 9/11, we lost about 5,000 people. We're talking over 200 million. Your brain can't even get wrapped around that. That's so many dead laying out there that you can't possibly get them into the ground. So imagine the stench that's going to be everywhere. And you can't possibly serve that many people. We don't have that much emergency medical preparedness. We don't have anything to match that kind of need. So
no, my hospital would be done in about 12 hours, probably.
It's going to be, in the first week, you're going to lose probably 50 million Americans. And that's not due to the CME or even the EMP. That is what happens when the grid's gone and everything collapses. And then you have societal collapse, which will be all your murdering going on. And the thing, once you kill all these people, they're laying out in the streets, their bodies aren't going anywhere, disease starts spreading everywhere. And that kills even more, making more disease, spreading more. It's just spiraling. So it's a grim thing. It's the end of the world stuff. And we almost got it on July 23rd, 2012. Look it up. Type it in the internet. Read up on it. There's all kinds of information on it. You never heard a damn word of it when it was coming in at us back then. Because they decided, the U.S. government, Homeland Security, the National Intelligence Council, they decided not to tell you that this black swan was heading this way. Because what could they do? Nothing. But you know, it'd be nice to get a heads up that you better say goodbye to your family.
Right. Now, if the coronal, the side of the Earth that is facing the coronal mass ejection, is this something that is just? Is it going to affect the side that's hit, or does this thing pretty much envelop? Like, would the backside of the planet be less affected?
Yeah, think of a ball, a beach ball going under a waterfall. What's the water do when it hits it? It cascades around it, so it's entirely covered. That's exactly what will happen when the CME arrives, or if they detonate an EMP straight overhead. We will be completely enveloped in it. And so that's really what does all the damage. It just overwhelms and overpowers the grid, and it's got nowhere and no how to stop the surging. And when the surge runs all through those transformers and they just go from regular temperature to white hot and they detonate, that's what's going to burn us. And here's the worst part. If it ain't bad enough, it gets worse. If you have not just the continent of North America burning, but every continent on planet Earth, which it would, they all would be burning. They'll throw so much smoke and ash into the air, it'll blot out the sun for the next 3 years. All vegetation dies. The planet gets really cold, like zero all across the planet, and everybody dies. That's how it really gets you. That's how it finishes you off. And all these reports, they always left a good anywhere from 5 to 7% left. And I said, well, who's all those people? And they went, well, that's 1% going into the bunkers. And they were serious. So I'm going, yeah, that's just wonderful.
And those are the kind of people that, when they survive, they're just, and I'm being sarcastic here, they're eminently qualified to garden for themselves or otherwise survive once the canned goods are gone.
Yeah, it'll be the rich and their servants going in. That's about it. But I'm telling you, we'll come out and they'll inherit the surface of the moon. So it's grim. It's really grim, and that's the really bad news about it all. You die. It's just
there's no calling 911. You know, the cops are probably going to be protecting their families.
Yeah. Exactly right.
There's no electricity for the pumping station, so once you expose or you use up what you had on the pumper trucks, or any passive systems.
Well, that's providing
you're
that
kind of screwed.
Yeah, and that's providing you get any vehicle started. It will shut down all the computer systems in all the vehicles. So all the vehicles are dead. The only ones that might start was the ones that would be turned off when it hits. But if they're running and it hits, they're gone. They will never turn on again. their entire electrical systems will be fried, just like the grid itself. So it's miserable, isn't it? There's really nothing good to say about this except one thing. It doesn't need to happen. We have ways of, with today's technology, off-the-shelf technology, it's not rocket science here, you can do off-the-shelf technology.
And you would know if it was rocket science.
Would know, and I'm telling you. Anyway, there's a game plan, and somehow or another I've gotten, I don't know, I just got vacuumed into this thing. But there is a way to get around this, and it's a whole lot simpler than you think it is, and it's very simple. And you can join me in on this if you want. Matter of fact, I wish everybody would. See, what's happened was there's this congressman in Arizona named Trent Franks, and he's a Republican, and he had a partner, it's a congresswoman named Yvette Clarke. She's a Democrat of New York. And those two got together in a bipartisan mode, and they wrote this 25-page SHIELD Act. And I've read the whole thing, and I'm going, dang, this is good. They've got surge arresters, they got blocking devices, Faraday cages. They got all the technology that's available today that would basically deflect and render a CME or an EMP effect on our grid down to just a minimum, if anything. Well, how much something like that is going to cost? Well, they need a one-time chunk of money of $10 billion. Well, there you go. See, now the taxpayer's got to pay it. You've already did. It's money already in the system. The budget of DOE is not $30 million a year, $30 billion a year. DOE gets $30 billion every 12 months. For God's sake. So anyway, you take $10 billion of that budget and build the shield across the entire grid, and then you use it when you average out maintenance for the entire operation and keeping it going forever comes to about 20 cents a year per person. That's adults, not counting kids, just 20 cents per person. So think about that, just the price of 2 envelopes, and that would get you your grid bill. Well, the problem is, this thing was introduced about 6 years ago. It has floundered in the United States Senate subcommittees, and they're playing politics with our lives. They're not allowing the thing to be passed. And so if it's got to get passed, and then it's got to be written into law, and then we can go to work on it. So anyhow, it's a long story. What started all this with me and finding all this out is that Eric, you ever heard of a thing called SWPC?
Yes, I have.
Okay,
it's
good.
Not very well. You have to hunt for it. It's not very well. It's not very well publicized, but
when you get there, it's a nice place, isn't it?
Yeah.
They got a really pretty website. They've got a really nice command center in Boulder, Colorado. And the man that runs it, his name is Theo Stein. Really nice guy, does his job. And what Teo's got going there is the Space Weather Prediction Center. And that's where you see on the Weather Channel space weather. That's where it comes from. Well, what Mr. Stein does in his office and his staff, they monitor all the threats from space. And they've got some really nice equipment. They got 2 satellites called Echo 1 and 2, and they're orbiting the Earth 1 million miles away from us, and they're designed to detect CMEs when they're coming in. Well, when the satellites say, hey, the CME inbound, he puts out an alert all over his system from the Space Weather Prediction Center, and then everybody would have to act accordingly and shut grids down and stuff like that. Well, I called up Mr. Stein and I asked him, Mr. Stein, when you send out the emergency alert and it goes out through the system, what makes up the system? Well, there are 900 rural electric co-ops, and add all 900 together, and you got the North American grid. Well, that's great, Mr. Stein. How many people are signed up? How many of those 900 signed up on your system? None. I went, what? Wait. You got 2 satellites out there doing a job. You got a nice, pretty command center here, and you got a really good, fine website, and you got an alert network, and you send out the alert, and none of the 900 are hearing you? He goes, that's right. What's going on?
It's throwing a party that nobody knows there's an invitation.
And he's an amazing man. He's an honest bureaucrat. It's like an oxymoron.
Where did he come from?
He's an honest bureaucrat, and he goes, "That's not my job." And he's telling you the truth. That's not his job. His job is not to sign people up on the network. These electric co-ops should do it, and they're not doing it. So I'm sitting there going, holy cow. So he goes, yeah, it was. He said, July 23rd, 2012, we just about got it. He said 3 CMEs came in at the same time, and they passed the Earth within 110,000 miles. If the Earth was a person and these were bullets, you'd feel the wind from the bullets as they went by. That's how close it is. So I'm going, my God, they didn't say a word on television about it. I guess you're right. They purposely did not put it on national media because, if they hit, what can we do? Nothing. And I'm going, the event that just about killed us all. Now, then he's not through, and he says, oh, yeah, if we were 6 days earlier in our orbit, yeah, all 3 of them would have hit us dead center, and we all would be dead now. And I'm going, holy crap. So the Mayans wrote their calendar, 2,000 years ago, without computers or calculators, and they only missed it by 6 days. We would have died in 2012 on July 23rd. It's just crazy. And that's when I got pulled into this.
And that's and it missed us by such a narrow margin. When you're talking, half the distance
splitting hairs, man.
Yeah, in the space is a really big place, and to come with half the orbit of the moon.
Yeah,
like I said, if that's a bullet, you're going to feel the breeze. That was such a
it's going to part your hair from the wind. I'm telling you, you can't get any closer. Yeah, I understand. Pluto's like 4.6 billion miles from the sun. Okay, that's the size of the solar system. We're talking about something that just breezed by. It's only 110,000 miles. That's less than half.
I just
that's only 80,000 miles from your geostationary satellites.
Well, now does this thing have a field effect? A coronal mass ejection? I mean, is there obviously if the main body of the coronal mass ejection strikes the Earth, but is there a field effect around it? How close would it have to come to act, maybe not hit the Earth, but how close would it have to come to still cause damage?
Well, obviously we now know for sure they can come as close as 110,000 miles because it didn't disturb anything. But yeah, understanding field networks, nuclear charged particles, and proton plasmas, this thing is just cooking, and God knows, I really wouldn't want to know. I know anything less than 110,000, let's say just 100,000, yeah, there's going to be some field effects. But it's as close as you could possibly cut it without, getting any problems from it. And I've had, of course, alternative groups have different theories, and somebody said, it's like a Star Trek event. Captain Kirk, somebody deflected those things. I don't know. Maybe they did. If they did, thank you, because we were going to burn. And the sad part is, it doesn't need to happen. We can put the SHIELD Act in place and get it up and running. And when a CME comes in and hits, cascades through the atmosphere, It'll just have a really bright Aurora Borealis light show that night, and next day we'll be just fine. But it's kind of more an extensive event. If you get the SHIELD Act passed and we are implementing it, I would definitely make a trip or two over to Russia and China and Europe and tell them, well, y'all see us building this shield grid for our power systems, and Jarl's is set up about the same way. We would even give you the technology, send people over, make sure you get it right, and you build your own shield, and you want to do that. So you really want them to do that, because if, let's say, America comes through without being on fire, what about the rest of the continents? If they're burning, they're going to throw enough smoke and ash in the air, and we're back to a nuclear winter again. So,
so this isn't something you're going to think. This isn't something some Pentagon think tank has said, well, if we protect ourselves and keep the secret, we're going to be collateral damage if they don't do their part as well.
Right, and that's a very easy way to motivate them. You just give them all the facts, and then before you leave, you just tell them this. If you guys sit here and do nothing, and we get our shield built over there at North America, and CME comes in, and it cascades over the entire planet, and North America, probably Canada, since they're so close, will come through pretty much unburnt. Our infrastructure completely intact. Now, here you are, China, Soviet Union, Europe. Your entire infrastructure is gone for decades, maybe even longer. Who do you think is going to own the planet?
The cockroaches.
Then you walk off. Because we will. America will own the world. Our infrastructure is protected. We come through just fine. And hopefully they don't throw enough smoke and ash up as they burn to a cinder out there to blot out the sun. If they don't, then America will own the world. I mean, own it. Imagine you got to build from scratch. Your infrastructure's gone. Your factories don't work. Nothing. You have to rebuild the factories from scratch. So imagine a superpower like America is sitting there with its infrastructure in place, and the rest of the planet's burnt. So that would motivate China and Russia. Hell yeah, they'll get their grid covered, and you wouldn't even have to beat them. Just tell them that and walk off. It's the what-if thing. Drive them crazy.
If the SHIELD Act was enacted, like right now, tonight, how long would it take for it to, to protect our infrastructure, our electrical infrastructure? I mean, this isn't something where you just go flick a switch and wave a magic wand. This requires a lot of work.
Yeah, you got to install a lot of things. You got to put in surge arresters, blocking devices, Faraday cages. Do you know that there's these giant transformers? You've seen the transformers at substations. These are called high-energy transformers. Do you know there are over 300 of them? These are big ones. And do you know that we have absolutely no spares? It takes 2 years. If one of those transformers gives out, it'll take 2 years for us to get a replacement built for it. We have no spares anywhere.
Are they still built in the Are they still built in the U.S. or are we having to rely on a foreign country to?
Yeah, Japan. So it's nuts. You're talking between $100-200 million to build your set of spares for these 300 transformers, and keep them.
Congress wastes that much money on golf trips and press conferences, so that's really not that big a deal. That's not that much money to protect and have some spares.
Yeah, how about the $65 billion they lost in Iraq? Remember the $65 billion cash? Just type it in the internet. Look at it. $65 billion disappeared. How about the $150 billion? Damn government gave Iraq or Iran, and now it's reneged on the contract. 150. We just need 10. You done spent 15 plus 65 billion. You spent so much on wasted money already, 10, 20, 30 times more than what we need. And what did you get for all that money spent? Nothing. What is the status of your entire power grid? Super critical, vulnerable. It's just sitting there waiting to be just burned to an ash. So,
I don't think people realize how exposed we are at this point. I mean,
no, they don't.
There's no predicting coronal mass ejections either. I mean, a CME could happen while we're talking about it. There's no...
Well,
we'd have, 9 minutes to know that it was headed?
Let me tell you another fun story. Now, I've mostly been talking about CMEs, coronal mass ejections coming off the sun. But the EMP, that's a man-made device, and it has about the same effects as the CME. Well, how's that even possible? Well, you might want to go check out the story on the internet where over at Panama Canal, they intercepted this ship coming from North Korea through the Panama Canal, and they believe it was on its way to Mexico. And they pulled 10 or 100,000 pounds of bags of sugar out of it, and laying underneath the sugar is 2 complete missile systems with launchers. And they were on their way to Mexico. And the cones that were built for the top, the warheads, they were EMP devices. Now, the devices were not with the rockets, but Iran and North Korea was working a deal with Mexico where they'd launch these missiles from Mexico. They fly about 120 miles up over, I would say probably Kansas. And then when it detonates about 120 miles above us, it'll put an EMP out over the entire continent of North America. Oh, by the way, do you know the southwest corner of America has no anti-missile defense system? None. Did you know that?
No, that's crazy. That's crazy because you've got so much of the Air Force, the Navy. I mean, the Navy down in San Diego.
But always
fleet, and there's nothing there to protect all that?
Nope. They said it's just Mexico, deserts, and tacos. There's nothing to worry about. And that's the point where this ship was heading. And so somebody could drop an EMP right now. They're trying to. They're trying to get, that was a run to get the missiles in. I believe the EMP devices are already in Mexico. So they can launch from there and just burn us to a cinder. It might not be as bad as a CME. It won't have the power. So it might not spike all the transformers into napalm, but still your grid goes dead and black, and you still got all those other troubles. So it just makes it a little bit easier if you're not on fire, but still you have no power grid. It's gone. And that's man-made. And the little fat boy down in Korea is working very hard to get an EMP delivered for your fireworks enjoyment. And it's going to happen, y'all, if you don't protect your grid. The Shield Act's in place to do just that. Let me tell you something else about an EMP. Type in the, on July 15th, 2013 is when they found those missiles. But also, back in 2013, did you hear about Silicon Valley substation? Did you hear what happened to it?
I vaguely remember that.
It was attacked. And the police, the police, they're wonderful. They came up and they said, oh, yeah, you're talking about the vandals that was there in spray cans. And we're going, what? No, here's what happened. Somebody broke in the substation of Silicon Valley. It's right next to an interstate. Now, the cops say these are vandals, teenagers, spray cans. Well, these teenagers, first thing they did, they shot out all of the camera systems, all of them, one shot each. Next thing they did, they took out 37 transformers, and they just shot the cable that connected them to the grid. They did not shoot the transformers. They just shot the connecting cable. 37 shots, 37 transformers, one shot each. Nobody heard a single gunfire, meaning that they're using sound suppressors. No one even saw anything. And as soon as they got through the chain link gate, just went through it, just cut it with something open. They went over to this big subground vault, and they used a burning magnesium rod. You ever seen that used? It's a rod that you feel. Yeah, it's hot as
like daylight.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they cut right through the vault in just seconds. Went in and used some kind of device and cut all of the fiber optic cables. And then they left. And they were in and out in less than 15 minutes. They did all that. Took out 37 transformers, took out the fiber optic that was in a vault. Oh, now these are vandals with spray cans. That's the official report. That was a tactical attack by a very highly trained, specialized ops force. Somebody's doing a dry run. And they didn't want to raise a ruckus because it's next to a freeway. So they got in and out. And all this was documented. Can't deny it. Look it up on the Internet. And that was the police report, vandals. So that's somebody getting ready. We're going to have an attack. Our grid's going to go down, and we're going to be standing in the dark ages. So anyhow, how do we make this better? I'm glad I asked myself that. There is a way to get out of this with the SHIELD Act. All you got to do is this. You pick up 2 pieces of paper. You write down 2 sentences, 1 sentence on each page, and you say, I support the SHIELD Act, and mention my name, and then sign it and date it. You fold it up, and you send 1 letter to U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski. She's the Alaskan senator, and I have her whole address here. You know what I'll do is I'll email you an address so people can come and get it off of you. How about that?
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah, you will have all the information. So we'll coordinate that after the program.
And we'll get the word spread.
Yeah, now these 2 people are the chair people. Lisa Murkowski is a chairwoman of the U.S. Senate subcommittee on the SHIELD Act. Congressman Greg Walton of Oregon, he is the House chairman of the Congress for the SHIELD Act. So these 2 people, Lisa Murkowski and Greg Walton, and you'll get your addresses. I'll read them off anyhow. They're 522 Hart Senate Office Building. But if you go to the Internet, just look up their names, you'll get all the information. But all you got to do is just say, I support SHIELD Act, sign it, date it, fold the letter, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, and send 1 to Lisa Murkowski and then 1 to Greg Walden. And you're going to ask yourself, well, what good would that do? Well, I learned something in my travels with all this mayhem. A U.S. Senator told me something in confidence, which I'm going to tell you. They get hundreds of emails a day in their offices, and they just blow them off. But if they get 10 written letters by 10 different people on the same subject, man, they go into a panic mode. They get subcommittees formed. They start moving on whatever it is. I don't know. There's something about postage and the stamps or something. It just drives them nuts. But that's all you got to do. So I called both these offices. I called Lisa Murkowski's office, called Greg Walden's office, and I told him, I have an awful lot of followers. Matter of fact, it's in the millions, tens of millions. I'm going to have them all write you letters. And they said, I said, do you remember the old black and white movie, Miracle on 34th Street? At the end of the movie, all those letters came in and drowned the judge, yeah, well, that's going to happen about 100-fold over for your offices. So I suggest you take my name down and write my phone number down, because you're going to want to talk to me. Anyway, you're the first radio show I'm doing this with, but I'll be doing it on coast to coast. Imagine the impact there. So anyhow, these people are going to get a few letters. But here's what I want you to think about something sitting there. You look at your children, or if you're younger, your little brothers and sisters, and you think about them never knowing what it's like to fall in love and get married and have a family, because they're all going to die with the hit of a CME. So you're sitting there looking at your kids or your siblings or whatever, and you just say to yourself, well, you know what, they're not worth 10 words and 2 stamp letters. That's all it will take. 5 words on each page, I support the SHIELD Act, and then put a stamp on it. So if those people are worth that much to you, do that. Send these letters in. It will make a difference, especially there's enough people on your radio station listening right now, you guys could make the whole thing move. You don't think stuff happens like that? Well, everybody thought Hillary's going to win. Who won? Yeah, the systems work. You just got to get in the numbers. But let me tell you, these chair people, if they get thousands of letters, you're going to have your SHIELD Act passed and then implement it. And I'll tell you what, I'll extend this offer. I will work for free to put this shield in place. How about that? I'm more than qualified, I can tell you that. And I'll just make sure it gets built right in time. About 2 years it would take us from start to finish so it's cranked up and ready.
Now you're already involved with this on a level already.
Yeah, I am. And
you're like the unofficial or the official civilian scientist in charge.
I suddenly became point man on this thing, and I wasn't even trying. And but yeah, all the people writing letters, tell them you want me for your director of the SHIELD Act.
Okay.
Because I tell you what, I'm not an insider. I have nothing to do with politics, but I have everything to do with technical things and science. And believe you me, I can get you a grid together. And also, I personally know over 200 rural electric co-ops. I've talked to them in projects I've worked for them. So that makes me a liked person in a very tight, clannish community. So, yeah.
Have you gotten some of these rural co-ops to get on board with the SHIELD Act? Because you mentioned there's 900 in the country, and none of them are part of this.
Well, now there is 118. I signed up 118. So, and I'm doing it from my house here. This is ridiculous. I can't believe I'm putting the North American grid together from my house. But it's working, and because, see, I need those rural electric co-ops. I went there in their annual meetings, and I did presentations for them, and so they knew me. So when I came in and told them what was happening, they were willing to listen to me because they know me. And it's just they don't. It's a problem with rural electric co-ops. They don't trust the government. God, who can blame them? But I explained to them this is a little bit different. It's not about the government. It's about us acting on things and protecting ourselves and save your kids, my kids, and everybody's kids. It's really, it's so easy to argue in a debate. You know, like, well, there might be cost or expense. What do you think being burned back into the Stone Age is going to cost you? You know, and it's going to happen. Let me tell you, we almost got it on July 23rd. And nobody even bothers telling you about it. And I didn't make it up. Go look it up on the internet. So I'm telling you, there's a way to fix this problem. But we haven't got a whole lot of time. Because I am certain that the next time Mother Nature slings one, we're going to catch it. It's just the rule of probability and outcome in statistics, which, God, that's a terrible thing to have to work with, statistics. But it's just, the numbers are all against us. And it runs in cycles too, 150-year cycle. We're 9 years overdue.
So it's fixing to happen. We need to
It happened on July.
We could be in the middle of preparing. David, I want you to hold on. We are getting ready to go to our first break of the evening. We got about a minute to go, and I'd like to get into some of the details about what it's going to take as far as equipment, and let's get into more about how to mobilize the people on getting to their. This is one chance we've got for $1 in postage and a couple slips of paper to actually mobilize and become a political force and give ourselves a voice.
You know what those two chair people office asked me? Each of them called them with.
Coming September 29th to October 1st, the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon. Hi, this is Dave Scott. The event will be held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Come join us for an amazing weekend of speakers talking all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Sasquatch, intuitiveness. Listen to great speakers like Miriam Delicato, Samantha Mowat, and the crypto guru Ronald Murphy. Get your VIP passes by going to spacedoutradio.com and clicking on the Paracon banner. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report, and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Our guest is David Adair, who is telling us how we can make a difference. There's a lot of people out there that don't think you can do much, that we're all at the whim and fancy of powers that be, but this is tonight. The subject we're talking about is one of the few times that for the cost of 2 envelopes sent to an address, you can make a difference and perhaps actually, really save the world. Welcome back, David.
All right. On the break, somebody said, don't believe he found any ships with the missiles. Well, I just typed in on the internet, are you people so tired you can't even type on the internet to research something? Type in EMP found on ship under sugar sacks. I'm looking at the photos of it. And there's missiles laying there under all these white sugar sacks. So get off your apathetic butts and check your stuff out. Can't believe we're just that lazy around here. Also, the attack on the Silicon Valley substation, that's all over the internet. As a matter of fact, if you're too lazy to look up both of them separately, got them combined for you. If you type in a thing that says, our death toll would be staggering, Judge Janine. You know that woman, Eric, Judge Janine? Know of her?
Yeah, I've heard that one before. I'm not sure in what context.
Yeah, and
it's ringing a bell.
She's a big-time reporter. And she has a whole thing. It's about CMEs and CMPs in that sub-power station. She's got pictures. It's about a 7.5 minute clip, and it's called "Our Death Toll Would Be Staggering," and it would be. So
I've got some questions in that, and I don't really know the answer myself. The difference between a coronal mass ejection and EMP. I mean, one includes the other, but the other, would a CMP have an EMP inside of it, or what are the differences? Say we get hit with a CME versus what would happen if we get hit with a EMP.
Okay. The CME is nature-made. The EMP is man-made. The nature-made, made by the sun, is the CME. It is actually way more powerful than anything man can build in his EMP weapon. So let's take the CME first. It's 100 billion tons of charged plasma, and it's coming at you in the shape of a ball, weight and size of Mount Everest, moving just under light speed, covers 93 million miles in 12 hours. When it hits, it's such a force, and the way it will strike the Van Allen radiation belts, imagine you're something very soft, you come in, you hit a hard ball. Well, you kind of split in half, and your contents will curve around it, and then they crash on the far side. That's where they come down through the upper atmospheres, all the charged plasma particles. And that also is what it will ignite your northern aurora borealis, will get really cranked up. But it'll cascade over the surface of the planet. And it's so charged that the spikes that would come back through the lines, overwhelming everything, would cause the transformers to detonate. And that's where your real problem is, where your fires will come from. And that's pretty much the course of a CME. But now, an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, is created by the cyclotrons of a nuclear warhead device when it's cranking up to the point where speed of light to crash the different elements together to get either the fusion or fission reaction. And when that happens, the energy that's released from that is your electromagnetic pulse. And when it goes out over the landscape, it will shut off everything. It will just simply burn out the components of the electronic components that you need to run functioning. So I'm trying to keep this simple. So it's really much more complicated. But anyway, it doesn't have the might of a corona mass ejection, but it's enough to shut down the grid. And you're still got the same problem as the CME. CME just might shut you down, but with a lot of fire. The EMP probably will shut you down with no fire, but the end result, your grid is gone, and it ain't coming back. So, you're not going, get the linemen out there, and they'll fix it in 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe 20 or 30 years you might. So how long is people going to be able to survive that? No refrigerators, no running water, no sanitation. 30 years of that. What do you think's going to happen? Yeah.
So, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah. Well, Mad Max might be a couple steps up.
Right.
I mean, it's just, and this is not science fiction. This is not alternative thinking. This is global mainstream science. We're telling you, it's the real deal. Look it up. And it's out there, and it's just waiting to happen. It's going to happen. Our powers, our governmental powers, they just feel they're helpless and can't do anything. They don't want to tell you about it. So that's why they didn't tell you about the July 23rd, 2012 event. But there is an answer to the solution. I've been telling you about it. And you need to get up and write 2 letters. Just if you don't do anything else in your life, just do these 2 letters. Enough of you do it, you're going to get movement out of the Senate subcommittee and the Congressional House Committee. and it will cause ACT to become a reality. So, if you want to live, write 2 little letters. And, and it works. I mean, the last election proved everybody thought all the numbers going this way. I'm told, nobody will do anything. Nobody will not support nothing. Well, you know what? I heard the same thing when people said Trump would never get elected. Well, look who's president. How'd that happen? Because there's a force out there that's moving through America that doesn't like Democrats, doesn't like Republicans, don't even like independents. And it made its voice known to everybody. What they want, you know why Trump won? He doesn't play well in the sandbox. And he started out as a Democrat, then became Republican, now he's functioning like an independent. They voted him in because he was an irritant. That political force, the political analysis analysts can't figure out, they wanted to throw some, sneezing powder into their laps, in their faces. So they put Trump in. And, the reason his ratings low, the people who voted Trump in don't even like Trump. It was what he represented that they wanted. Not the same old crap. And, buddy, he has delivered on that. But,
now, you said it only takes 10.
That's it.
You know this. Now, for those that don't know, you have sat on Senate committees, and you've been asked to be an expert speaker for these people. How did this come about that you found out that 10 letters is the magic number?
Well, I won't name him, but I was talking to a senator, and he was telling me, I was telling him, I guess letter writing campaign's not worth a hoot anymore with the emails. And he said, I've been in office, I won't say how many years, decades. And he said, you know what, I thought the same thing. But the posted stamp letter has more power now than it ever did. We get 10 of them, just 10. On the same subject within a couple days. We form committees. We start doing things about it. You can send 500 emails in. We just blow them off. But it's something about the stamp letters. You got to cut them open. You got to read them. I don't know. It's something. It behaves differently. And he was kind of vague on why it works, but I don't care. That's all I need to hear. So there's got to be at least 10 people out there that want to write this thing. So I hope I get a lot. And I tell you what, there you are sitting, working at a job or studying at a school or college, and you're about to get a job. Well, wouldn't that just be a picture? You spend all this money to get an education, you get ready to go to work, you sit down at your desk, and everything goes black, and that's it. You're never going to see the lights again. Wouldn't that just make your day?
Well, at least you wouldn't have to pay back your student
loan
loans.
off. You're debt free. You won't have to pay any of your college loans off, but you ain't got no world to live in either. It can happen. Laugh all you want. I remember listening to a person say, well, Donald Trump will win the presidency. And everybody laughed at this person, laughed him off the stage. They ain't laughing today. So, same thing with this. You can just blow me off and don't think it's real. Then you'll just be sitting in the dark. But you know what? I'm 63 years old. I'm about dead anyhow, so I don't care. But how about somebody that's 20 years old, 24, in college? You might care about this. How would you like to live? I'd like to see you live and grow up and pay your debts off and have a family. But none of that's going to happen. We're going to get hit. At 110,000 miles on the last pass by 3 CMEs in a perfect storm, man, I couldn't make up something that crazy. And it's all over the internet for you to research. But that tells me on a celestial plane, using celestial mechanics, which is a form of math that I use to calculate certain celestial body movements. But anyhow, the odds are stacking up. They're so far against us, we're going to get hit, y'all. It ain't if, it's just when. I believe the next round's going to get us. But we may have enough time to put the shield in place. But that'd be very cool because you'd have a very fun Aurora Borealis to watch at night and not have your continent burning up, and it might be a fun day instead of end of the world type crap.
Okay, let's go into a little bit of the SHIELD Act. As far as, okay, let's say we get a citizen, we get this grassroots program going. We get enough people that have written to Congress. We've got it now. Do we have the industrial infrastructure in this country to build what we need to protect the grid? Or are we going to have to subcontract all this stuff out to India, China, Japan, pick your offshore, how well prepared are we to even get the ball rolling?
All right, very good question. I'm going to break it up. First part is, do we have the technology to do this with on hand? Yes, we do. A lot of stuff is off the shelf. It's just a configuration of how to put it in. Like I said, we have surge arresters. We have blocking devices. We have Faraday cages. Faraday cage is really cool. It's like a big metal mesh net. And the second part of your question, all of the parts that we need, we do not have. But we can get them. But we have to order them from other countries, and it takes a while to get them here. And just give you an idea of what it would be like. Imagine you're trying to put these big transformers in place at a substation, and everything's road warrior out there, and you got to drive these transformers across them roads to get to the substation to put the transformer in. See the problem? It's just nuts. No, in the SHIELD Act, what we do, we'll go ahead and pay for it, and we order the transformers. We put them on site, right on site of where the other transformers are running. We're talking like only 100 feet away. You put a Faraday net over them, so when the CME comes in, it will have no effect on the spare parts. But that's only if other parts of the shield would fail, because you have blocking devices, surge arresters, and you've seen the surge protectors. You got them in your own house. You plug it, in the wall, and then plug the computer into it. Well, see, that's old technology, and we don't have to invent anything new. We just have to drag it out and use it on a very large scale. But there's a lot of it's all, actually, would you believe, some of the most expensive and complicated parts of the shield is already in place. Example, you're going to have to build some really nice rockets and launch 2 big satellites. These satellites would be able to detect corona mass ejections and take all kinds of data and trajectories, readings, all that stuff. And you'll have to launch them, and you got to get them in orbit. You got to maneuver them where they're perfectly synced in orbit with each other, about 1 million miles out from Earth, and set your monitoring network up. Well, guess what? That's already done years ago. So the satellites are out there. Well, now you got to have a big command center with dishes that receive the incoming signals and transmit and all that. And you have to have a big control center and personnel to run all that. Well, guess what? It's already done. It's called the Space Weather Center, SWPC, Space Weather Prediction Center, and it's in Boulder, Colorado. And you can look it up on a really nice SWPC. Go to it, look at the website, look at the command center. That's all built. Now that's your early warning stations part of the shield. Because now we got satellites 1 million miles out, and we have this incoming data. We got a command center, and we got a website, and we got an alert network. Now we just have to get all the other co-ops. Now it's down to about 822 of them, but you got to get them all onto this network line. But see, if we get the SHIELD Act, there's provisions in there where we will beef up that system. It really is only partially in place. But Mr. Stein was correct. It's not his job. So that's the early warning. So the signal comes in. Our satellites out there, has just picked up a CME and it's inbound. So what happens next? Well, the information comes back to Mr. Stein's command center, SPWC. He sends out an alert signal that goes all through the network. When all the 900 electric co-ops get the message on the computer, and there'll be functional alarms or sirens. It won't be just an email that shows up and everybody's playing cards somewhere or having lunch. This thing's going to go off like a car alarm. Then it'll be wired into, sirens and speakers here all over the grounds. So they'll all go run and look at what they are, and then now the next step happens. And this is where they would engage your surge arresters or blocking devices. They will simply shut entire sections of the grid off from the grid so that if the surge comes down through there, it won't even make it to the substations or distributor stations or the manufacturing plants or the nuclear plants, coal-fired plants, electrothermal plants, whatever they're generating. All those will be blocked off. And so the entire grid just kind of like segments itself. Very similar to a battleship. When you take a torpedo in the side and you start closing off all the surrounding hatches and doorways, then the ship is almost like compartmentalized.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That way when torpedoes come in and blow bigger holes, it can still float.
Right.
Well, the grid is doing exactly the same thing. It's just shutting off. Instead of coming in one big bang and take out the whole grid, now it had to hit all these things individually, and it can't. Because it is just fortunately a one flash attack. And that also goes for EMPs as well. They're just a one-shot device. Now, an EMP is going to be a little bit trickier because we don't know when whoever it would be, North Korea or an Arab terrorist, we don't know. Whoever detonates an EMP in America, we don't know when or where. We get at least warnings from Mother Nature that a CME is coming, but an EMP it's just going to be out of the blue. And there are other devices that can be put in place along with all the other devices that can trigger at the speed of light, the surge arresters, the blocking devices, and all that. And
is there a priority list? Like, I mean, this isn't going to be a willy-nilly, just throw parts at this thing. Have you come up with, okay, we install part, while we're waiting for the spare parts to be made, do we take, what's the priority? The circuit breakers, the Faraday cages? What do we do?
Well, the first thing you want to do is put Faraday cages on all the substations, distributor stations. You can do that over some of the transformers. You can use the blocking devices, surge arresters. All the stuff would have to be put in place on the ground, on the grid, right away. And best way I would do it is I start out at the manufacturing plant and start putting in the devices and just spread all the way out to the end user. And that way we'll get it all done as we go. But you would definitely want to get your bigger distribution centers, things like that, done first. In case something does happen when we're hit while we're still building it, we can take less hits. We can reduce percentage-wise the amount of damage we would take on should an event occur while we're still building it. So there is a protocol for that, of what you build or put install first, that give us the best chance as we can, as quickly as we can. But hopefully once you start it, you'll get done before anything happens and you'll be okay. But if not, there is a protocol for that.
Okay, so there is part of the SHIELD Act is prioritizing. I'd like to take a question from one of our audience members over in the Spreaker chat. Andrew Chaland, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Andrew, but you got a really good question here. Are there any countries that have hardened their grid?
No. Everybody's got this lackadaisical attitude, just like we do, and that is a very good question. Excellent question. And you know how fast I can answer it. No. No one has it. If it is, it's so small, we haven't even noticed it. But as far as major countries, no one's done anything to protect themselves. It's astounding, isn't it, that we depend so much on it, put so much on it, and not do a thing to protect it. And it's not just, say, stupid Americans. It's stupid humans. It's all across the planet. So I don't know what that is about. But excellent question.
In the same chat room, on the Spreaker chat, Rodney has a question for you, David. Do you have full support to make all this happen?
No more than an average citizen does. What is astounding is that all the stuff is laying everywhere, and you can see what's going wrong. And I just went to check on some things that I was. Here's how the whole thing started. Do you remember I said I was lectured at about 200 of the 900 co-ops? Well, right. I was. My wife passed away, and I wanted to go back speaking, so I called up all these places so I could go back speaking, and that's how I found out. And that's how one thing led to another. I looked at the. What I did, I asked the electric co-ops. Now, these are the people that run your grid. Do you guys know about a CME? A CM what? You guys know anything about EMPs? Not really. You guys ever heard of the SWPC, Space Weather Prediction Center? No. Have you ever heard of Mr. Theo Stein? No. Well, what are you going to do when a CME comes in and how are you going to get warned? I don't know. There ain't no warning system. Yeah, there is. And that's how it led to me getting involved. Is I just started asking the co-ops about it, and they didn't know anything about it. Then I went and got backtrack, see what is made, found the SPWC, talked to Mr. Stein, then got, the next thing I know, here I am. I tell you
so
what's
much for a quiet retirement.
You know, I tell you what, I'm the first to yell, the Emperor is naked. That's exactly what it is. You know the fable. You know, the Emperor's new clothes.
Right.
Well, I'm the only one in the crowd that said, no, it's not clothes, he's naked. No, this is not a CME protection grid. This thing is not even completed. And then it started from there. And it didn't take you very long to figure out we have started a little bit of it and then stopped, and nobody in America knows about it, and that's why they're not concerned about it. No politician talks about it because none of the people are upset about it. So if they're not upset, politicians are not going to say anything, and here we are. And the SHIELD Act has been laying in subcommittees for 6 years.
Do you have a website set up for the SHIELD Act where people can go? I'm getting questions in our chat room. People that want to get involved, is there a way for them to do so?
Yeah. Well, tonight is the first night I started this. So what's been going on for the last few months? I've been learning everything. I've been studying, research, calling, visiting, and this is what I've found. And so I haven't had time to set anything up. As a matter of fact, you know, stuff like that, that's where volunteer groups should jump in and get a site going. But for the time being, you can use my site. It's called americasfallfromspace.com. That's with an S on America. Once again, that's americasfallfromspace, all one word, .com. And you can send your request, whatever, there. And if you need to know the name and address of the two people you're supposed to send the letters to, Senator Lisa Moskowski of Alaska and Congressman Greg Walding of Oregon, those two are the chair people. Lisa is the chairwoman of the Senate, and Greg is the chairperson in the House of Representatives. And those two will decide the fate of the SHIELD Act. So write them a letter. Tell them what you feel about this. They have, that's a good question, where you phrase it, do I have all the support? I don't know. I just started. But I tell you what, if you guys write enough letters and they get enough of them, they're going to want to be talking to me, because that kind of stuff worries them. And I guess it can grow into something bigger than they want to have. But, man, this whole thing is, it's not Chicken Little and the sky is falling. It's real hard science, real reality. Every science you can think of, committees, AAAS, American Advancement Association of Science in America. God, there's just, I can't even remember. There's so many of them. League of Concerned Scientists. All of these groups have done studies, and they all came to the same conclusion. And that's kind of scary when they all agree on something.
Yeah, when they all agree, it's got to make you wonder.
Yeah, especially when they're only 1% to 2% off on the numbers. I mean, you mean you got a spread of about 3% among these groups? That's nearly a total consensus. That's whatever it is. You can go to the bank; it's real, and that's what they were talking about. What's the survivability of a CME and an EMP? And it's 93% loss of the population. Damn, that's a lot of people. So anyhow, don't have to lose a single person.
It's entirely preventable.
Entirely preventable. Absolutely preventable. Does not need to happen. You've already got the money in place. You already got the early warning system in place. You got a lot of stuff already in place. They're just not coordinated and coherent. And that's all you need to do. It's just, God, and it will save all of us. I mean all of us.
Okay, now there's probably a tipping point somewhere where we can start the infrastructure changes, and it's not really going to help if a CME comes. But, where is the point where what we're doing will help, and how long would it take to get to that bare minimum of protection to keep, Armageddon from happening?
If you start right now and you can get the SHIELD Act passed and then it's signed into law, now that's a long trip there, and we got to go in front of Trump. I meet that character, all I'm going to tell him is, don't connect us to global warming or climate change. I know y'all don't go for that. This is something even more hardcore science. This is just like, water's wet, gravity pulls you to the earth. It's just things that are real. Well, that's the CME and the EMP will take you out electrically. So your grid's gone. So that's a fact. And I'll just simply tell Trump, it's bad for business. Kind of hard to conduct business in the dark, isn't it?
So we're talking.
Running.
Could he?
You can't conduct it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, there.
If we get right there and say all the political will is there, we get the go-ahead button. Are we looking at from that point?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
For the bare
2
minimum.
years from that. And I mean, that's getting on it and staying on it. That's like a, 24/7 grind. But the way I would operate it,
bare minimum. That's to get to the bare minimum of protection, or is that to get everything hardened?
No, that's everything. That's everything. Probably there's a point where you get at. I know what you're saying about the break point. Probably about a year into it, you'd have enough in place. You could really reduce the slaughter of yourself by 50, 60%, maybe 70%. So in years' time, that's a lot. That's a big percentage you're covering. So it's a good deal. But man, need to get on it and get it started. And this can be done within Trump's term. That's the other thing. Completed. And then I have another idea for this thing. Oh, this grabbed a lot of people. But I'm telling you, we need to do it. you get the whole grid in place, right? And you got all your devices in, you got everything set up. You got a baseball mitt, and you're standing there. Come on, see me. You're ready. You know what we need to do? Test it. Now, that don't sound like much, but you just think about what I just said. Do you remember the old black and white movie, Michael Rene, The Day the Earth Stood Still?
Love it.
We're going to need to do that for real, where he was an alien and he stopped the world for 30 minutes. That's what's going to happen. We're going to have to shut down our grids cold and see if we can do it and see what happens after we do it. Because I guarantee you, when you shut the grid off and you go to turn it back on, you're going to find so much stuff doesn't work. It's busted. Hasn't been checked in 40 years. Switches frozen. Nothing's been moved. You really want to know what's running and what's not running. But to do that, that's impossible. We can't do that. Yes, we have done it. Do you remember sitting in front of the TV set and all of a sudden it goes into a triangle? And it's the civil defense system.
Oh my goodness.
For the next, remember, and for the next 3 minutes will be a test. This is only a test. Do you remember that?
If this were an actual emergency, you would be instructed to bend over and kiss your butt goodbye. Yes, I remember those.
Yeah, but you remember they the network of the TV sets worked. They tested it. You could see it. You go to anybody's house, same damn signal on every single TV set all across America. That meant they shut all broadcasting down cold for about 2 or 3 minutes. Point is, we did it. We've done it before. You can be done. This is just the power grid. You will shut it down cold for 30 minutes. You realize traffic has to stop on the road. There's no street lights.
Oh my!
And people say you can't do that. Well, you do about 3 o'clock in the morning to 3:30. That's the lightest of the traffic. But also, it doesn't really give you a good idea of a full load being shut down and turned on. But you can start off light like that. But in the middle, you will have to do it in the middle of the day. And you go, well, that's inconvenient. 30 minutes. How about being burned back to the Stone Age and never having it again for the rest of your life? You think that's more inconvenient?
Now, if we can harden the system. Is there any way to block this thing from space? Or some kind of... Seems like we're missing out on a really great power supply. It seems like has anybody thought of a external shield or something that could at least maybe deflect it a little bit?
I'm not sure I'm following you. Is it where you'd want to put emit a shield coming from space over the grid? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, has anybody had the idea of putting something out in space that would act as a block? Or is there even, like say, a Faraday cage in space? Is there a practical way of doing that?
I'm not familiar with one. I'm having a hard enough time just trying to get to do it on ground. That's something that can be looked at down the road, absolutely. That's something the military should be looking at. But as far as I know, no, I don't know of anything like that. My God, nobody don't even know about CMEs or EMPs much.
Well, the military has got some hardened sites, and they've been growing, slowly over the last few years.
Maybe they have enough.
The Air Force, they figured out that an EMP, as technologically heavy as our military is, I would think that there's at least some parts of the military have been hardened.
They have been, and they've been for a while that way. Problem is, when the military, if it survives, and it probably will survive, it's got hardened sites, so all of it survives. But compare it to the entire masses of the entire population of North America, the military can't care for that. They can't, they can be barely protected. And as far as local, state, and federal, everything's gone. So the military is just going to end up saving itself. It's not even going to be able to help control the societal collapse that will occur instantly on day one. You know, the military will be enough to save itself in a little isolated pocket. It'll be able to do that, but it's not going to be able to come out and help you. You're not going to get rescued. Here comes the United States Marines. That ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen. That's just a misconception in your head. In reality, they're all going to be trying to save their own bacon. So,
many of our aircraft now are, I think some of our older Navy ships, like maybe, you think some of the nuke, like the submarines will probably be okay, but do you think something like the Nimitz would survive something like this?
If it's not hardened, no, it will not survive it. It will lose all its power and it will never come back on. And yes, people go, well, it's nuclear power. Well, yeah, but all the subsystems around it are digital, and they will be taken out. You'll have reactors humming, but no way to control them. So they'll just scram them and shut them down. So it's a complicated thing. And I tell you what, the day that you would test this thing, when you go to turn that grid back on, you're going to find, hospitals in bad shape. They have backup systems. Haven't been turned on in 40 years. You're going to have energy distribution plants, nuclear power plants, coal-fired plants. They have never been shut down cold and asked to restart again. Not like a test would require for you. Now, you could probably get away with cutting them out of the grid on the test. In other words, you just put them on idle. You don't have to shut them. You don't have to shut them down. But what you're really checking is the distribution system, all the lines, make sure all that stuff's working. But eventually you're going to have to get around and target every single thing there is, because it's like a chain. Chain's only as strong as the strongest link in its chain. So
and we can't rely on, we're not going to want to rely on a computer simulation of this. This is going to have to be an honest-to-God real-time test.
That's right, because you got big transfer switches, rotating heads out there. Oh golly, what are these things called? Buzz bars. And these things are huge. As big as a person, they have to turn and move and connect and disconnect. You know, when we had that big power blackout in Northeast America and New York City and Canada, do you know it came down to just a single fuse? The fuse was big as your arm, though. But that single fuse blew, and the system is so weak and delicate that when that fuse blew out, it did a cascading effect from Canada to New York. And that's why everything went down the way it did.
And
that's how fragile.
That's not the kind of fuse you wrap in tinfoil and move on.
No, we're talking something, it's about 40, 50 pounds, and it's about 3 feet long and about 8 inches in diameter. It's kind of big. But still, compare that fuse to the whole system that went out thousands of square miles, that's terribly weak and fragile.
Very small component causing a catastrophic
and that's just a
failure.
fuse. Yeah, imagine the savage power of a CME coming in, or an EMP compared to a blown fuse. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's like a garden hose next to a fire hose in power.
Well, now you've been involved in some of these hearings. Is FEMA even, does FEMA have any kind of plan, or is this a can they've kicked down the road?
No plan whatsoever. It doesn't even exist. Because they know when it hits, it's going to be so devastating, there's nothing they can do. They're overwhelmed.
So they just throw the towel in on that one and just,
That's it. Yeah, they don't even worry about it. It comes, bend over and kiss your ass. But they won't tell you that officially, but that's exactly the way they're set up. They cannot respond to this. It's too big. Everywhere you look in a 360-degree pattern from where you're standing when it happens, everything needs help. You can't service it. It's too much. And what are you going to service it with? you won't have any power, no communications, no transportation. You're not going to do squat. You're just going to, it's going to be Mad Max out there. And that's a shame. Doesn't have to be.
Now,
but
if we, okay, so it sounds like we really need to get some people mobilized on this.
Yeah, and it's so simple. I'm not asking you to do a grassroots campaign where, I'm just asking a simple letter campaign. All you got to do is put out 2 stamps, 2 letters, 5 words on each letter, sign it and date it, and you will have made a significant impact. And let me tell you, if 100,000 letters show up there, we're going to have a shield act. But it's just getting people off of their apathetic butts to just send out 2 letters. That's all.
Getting the inertia moving.
Yeah, that's all.
Fighting inertia.
I'm done. You know what? You guys get the letters in. I'll do the work for you. Seriously, you get enough letters in there. The Shield Act gets passed and it's written into law. Then I'll become the director, and I'll put the thing together for you, and you'll have a running grid.
We both live in the same area of North Carolina. It's like, okay, you gotta. We're not really known for our whopping nightlife in that area, so it'd be nice to have something to do with your retirement.
Yeah. I retired when I was 50. I'm 63, so I've been retired for 13 years, and it was fine until my wife died a year and a half ago, and my life just came to a stop because I spent my last 20 years with my wife, and I just had a perfect relationship. She was my best friend. Anyway, that threw me into a real tiz because I've got all the other projects I've built, the electromagnetic fusion containment power plant, all of its designs, its schematics, the mathematical expressions, everything you need to put the thing right together right down to the screws. That's all set in an outsource on the web, and upon my demise, you guys get it.
I'm
the
curious,
whole thing.
Have you built in a certain amount of CME or EMP protection in the fusion? I think of people with little fusion reactors outside their houses and having one of these Carrington event type things happen, or an EMP attack, and you have a bunch of little suns going off in people's yards.
Well, not really. What you do, so simple, throw a Faraday cage over it. That's all. Because when the Faraday cage goes over it and you ground it correctly, when that charged particles come in, they'll hit that cage, they'll stay off of your reactor, and they'll just ground out into the ground. So it's like I said, it's not rocket science here. It's pretty simple, basic electricity stuff, but it's the size and magnitude. You're talking about enveloping the entire national grid. And also, that's another thing. This should be, I look at these stupid AOL and news stories and stuff, and Warren Buffett says it's more dangerous than nuclear weapons, and it's all these stupid articles. Should be the number one and national threats to national security is CME and an EMP, because either one of them would take your entire grid out forever. How much more of a threat do you need to national security? Blow your entire infrastructure gone forever? Jeez, that'd be the top of my list to make sure that ain't going to happen. And they don't even talk about it. So, like Judge Janine said here, our death toll would be staggering. Yeah. You're looking at about 320 million dead in America. Think about that. 320 million dead. And we only lost 5,000 at 9/11. We're talking about 320 million. I mean, it's biblical, man. And it's all preventable, and it was all set up by us. we put our power grid 40 feet in the air. We put it underground, we wouldn't be talking.
Well, are there any is there any thoughts about putting it underground? I mean, to me, it seems like it should have been underground
the number one,
all along.
Should have been, but the number one complaint back then, all the way up to today, is the same complaint. Costs too much. And my reply is, how much being burned back into the Stone Age is going to cost?
I would think with some of our modern petrochem, PVC, that I would think that there are more cost-effective ways. Maybe, 150 years ago, it might have been, what did they have to work with? But I mean, we've got, long-lasting plastics that could work as, underground conduits.
Well, where's little Nikolai when you need him? Nikolai Tesla, his power distribution of those power towers that he was designing, those would have been the perfect thing. Yeah, because they would come in and all they do is just shut the tower off, all of them, just like turning a bunch of front porch lights off. And the thing would hit, spread out over the ground, dissipate, turn it back on.
In a way, the tower would have had to have been very, very well grounded. Just because the idea of the power of this thing, one of these CMEs, just the amount of voltage or, current that one of these things would cause to happen.
And the power surge is off the scale because it's not just, like the load comes down on the grid from above. It's not traveling down the wires. It's coming from above. It lands on the grid from end to end all at once. So it's like you have a breaker here, but the power surge is coming from left and right of the breaker. And it doesn't matter whether the breaker's there or not, with the way we have it set up right now. But with, blockers and diverters and stuff, that's different. It would stop the flow. But right now, if it hits, it's just going to travel the lines, and it's just going to cause the transformers just to surge, and then they explode. And that's what's going to really do us in. It's going to be all the exploding transformers start the fires. And there's no way to put them out.
So to prioritize this, like the first, everything gets signed into law, one of the easiest, best things we could do then is put the diverters or the circuit breakers or some way to keep preserve the transformers.
Yeah. Well, I think where you really start is at those 300 high energy transformers. You start from there. You protect your biggest stuff first, and you also do it right next to the metropolitan areas. We wouldn't go out in the middle of a rural area in the middle of Utah and do it. We'd be in New York, L.A., Chicago. You're going after all the big demand areas and protect them first, and then work your way out to the very small little town. And
those are also the areas that if the spam hit the fan, the horror of the mob mentality would be in these high. They get mad enough if they have a blackout, a normal blackout.
Right. National intelligence community refers to that as societal collapse. And that's the worst. That's the big enchilada. When society have societal collapse, that's where you have millions of people with handguns killing millions of people, taking whatever little food and water they can find. And believe me, that will happen the first day it will start, and just go worse from there.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a case of, well, we'll see what happens tomorrow. You've got. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see this is going to go bad to worse to just god-awful quick. And it will. It's just, God, it's so preventable. I mean, is there anything, we've got about a minute before we go to our last break. Is there any kind of something you can have in your home that would, at least help protect the transformer outside your house, or maybe something you could do to keep it from getting out of hand?
Not really. Probably the best thing you could have is just an entire total load circuit breaker or surge protector coming from the outside line into your main fuse box. That'll keep your fuse box from blowing and throwing sparks throughout the house and causing an immediate fire in the house. But believe me, it's not going to matter much, because outside everything's going to be raging and burning anyhow.
So there's like a dry chemical PKP extinguisher or something?
No, just you'd want to just be able to cut your house away from the power source, because it's going to be a huge surge. Now, they do make a surge protector that you can buy and have an electrician install it that between the incoming power and your main circuit panel. So when a surge and like that,
David, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. We're going to go into our break, and we'll get right back. See you on the flip side of 7 minutes, people.
Looking for a great weekend getaway this fall? Hi there, this is Dave Scott. Come on up to the heart of British Columbia for the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon, being held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Speakers from all over North America are coming to discuss Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and intuitiveness for the 3-day event, September 29th to October 1st. For more information, go to spacedoutradio.com and click on the Caribou Paracon banner and book your tickets today. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 Mediums and a Large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know.
Private Eye Matrix revealed.
All right. Welcome back to the last hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I'm giving Dave a night off, and it's the preacher Eric Markham and his guest,
are solely
David Adair.
The original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent Revolution Radio staff or affiliates.
I'm doing fine.
We're in the same time zone, so how's 3 o'clock in the morning feeling? 2 o'clock in the morning feeling to you?
Oh man, I'm used to doing it. I've been on coast to coast, and they got the same hours.
All right, I wanted to kind of wrap up the SHIELD Act. There's some other things that are very important that I'd like to get into, but for our audience, David has sent me the mailing addresses to Senator Lisa Murkowski and Congressman Greg Walden. These are the people we need to send the letters to get something done with the SHIELD Act. And I'll be posting these addresses all over our Spaced Out Radio website and our different Facebook pages with the different regions. So we'll get to that. Now, a lot of people probably remember that you are a honest-to-God rocket scientist. Now, You've been doing some work in designing fusion reactors.
Right.
Now,
as a matter of fact, I never stopped doing it. That's what the rocket that I got tagged with so much. It wasn't really rockets that I was after. I'm after something else. Rocket engine was the medium in which I found that I could test out my hypothesis on my theorems of containment, mathematical expressions. And the only way I could actually figure out a physical 3D reality test was to come up with a rocket engine, because what I was really working on, and still have, and have for the last 46 years, and I finished, I was after fusion containment, and that's been the holy grail of physics. And people said, you couldn't have possibly done it. There's been, RAND, there's been Battelle Memorial, there's been all these NASA and MIT, and they spent billions on it, and they still haven't got it. Well, they kind of got it. They've gotten up to, I think, 1.000756 of 1 second of containment. Back in June 20th, 1971, I got up to 4.5 seconds. Now, that don't sound like much, but from where they're at to where I'm at is an eternity. I was knocking on the door of total containment, and in that 4.5 seconds, I let my rocket burn for 3.6 or 7? 3.7 seconds, I believe. And in that 3.7 seconds, that rocket, it performed beyond anything I was expecting. The power was just so intense. There was so much of it. But anyhow, that's... and people confuse me with cold fusion. I'm anything but cold, y'all. My engines run at 100 million degrees centigrade. That's about 10,000 times hotter than the surface of the sun. There's a really good reason for us running that hot on these things. Its temperatures are necessary at that level to get to the fusion process you want to get at. But also in the full containment field, and that's where everyone's missed it. The reason they don't have full containment running yet, they're on the wrong design. They've been on the wrong design for 81 years. Try telling them that. They're not listening. Matter of fact, I'll tell you a story. I was at the, ironically, the Rayburn building, and I didn't... You really have to know where you're going around in the office buildings of our nation. It's different. It's not like regular office buildings you go into in a town. For instance, I saw this elevator open up. The other elevator's just loaded with people, so I ran over this elevator, and I thought it was a freight elevator. Well, I get in, and just as the door closed, I see a sign outside that says, "For senators and congressmen only." I didn't know any better. I'm in a suit. I thought, I'm carrying a briefcase. They'll probably think I'm just a congressman. Well, it was stopped next floor, door opened, and all these people get on board. And I get over to the corner by the panel, and they're telling me what numbers they would like to push. And I was pushing them. And the doors are all brass, really fancy. And when the doors closed, it's like a mirror. I could see everybody behind me. And they were in a kind of a heated argument out in the hallway. And they got in the elevator, and as soon as the doors closed, they started up again. And I don't know what you can call it, serendipity, coincidence, or whatever. But you know who these people were? They were all the lobbyists and senators and Congress people of the fusion containment community, so help me. And I'm sitting there going, oh, my God, and they just had a meeting about fusion containment. And I'm just keeping my back turned to them, and I'm listening to them. And they go, we have put in decades of work, and you tell us now that the official reply from you as a whole is that what you need to get to fusion containment, you need $80 billion more and 40 more years. And I'm sitting there going, 40 years. That's a familiar number? It should be. That's the number of a career. So they want this block of $80 billion to last them 40 years. They're planning out careers. They don't care whether they get fusion containment or not. And so I should have just kept my mouth closed, but I just couldn't. And I said to the old elevator, I didn't even turn my back. I said, "You're on the wrong design." And you could hear a pin drop. And this woman went, "See, I've been telling you, that's exactly what's wrong. We're not on the right track. We're on the wrong track for design." And they went, "Who are you over there?" And the doors opened. I went, "I'm just the guy got on the wrong elevator." And I stepped off. But two of the women followed me, and they were the editors of Fusion Containment Magazine for it's the technical magazine for the community. And they wanted to know who I was. I just told them, "Look, you got the wrong design, and I'll give you a clue. You have half of it." And see, that's the problem. They're using THAL compressors, and that is only half the answer. And I figured out the other half back in 1971, actually early, about 1968. And I tried this other design, and lo and behold, it works. And I don't know why the others hadn't switched to a different design. Mainly it's like NASA and their solid rockets and their liquid fuel rockets and nothing else. Never mind, there's 77 other rocket engines you could pick from in Huntsville, Alabama, at the Long Range Planning Division of NASA. But nobody wants to ever hear that part. But anyway, that's all they use, status quo. Chemical and solid rocket fuel. That's it.
Well, how hard are these fusion? I mean, you were doing this as more or less in high school as a metal shop student, weren't you, on your original rocket engines?
Well, yeah, in the original preliminary design, and then I just got all this, I don't know what you call it, that spell of dreams, and all this knowledge came in, and I just started putting it to work, and I realized very quickly I can't do this by myself. I need so much equipment and so many expertise in other areas. I said I'm just not going to be able to do it. Well, Mother Nature came in and had or whatever you want to call it, fate, it had a different idea. So what seems like an unimportant event or something that shouldn't have any bearing on me, my mother, my dad got injured. My mother had to go back to work. She was just a housemaker. But Mother was smart, and she started out at the local hospital, and she became a candy striper at about 38. Then she became a nurse's aide within about 6 months. And she got so good as nurse's aide that she went to college and then became an LPN. And then she is a coronary care specialist technician. Now listen up. This is 1966. There is no coronary care units. There is no women in that kind of field of work in a small area where we were. So my mother was the first female coronary care technician in Ohio in 1966. And they gave her a choice of shifts, and she always loved 11 to 7 shifts. So she chose it. So my mother is now the head technician of the graveyard shift of a brand new built coronary care technician unit. Now you're asking yourself, what's that got to do with his story? Well, bear with me. So my mother is in charge, and she gets this patient in there, a cranky old guy, 93 years old. His name is Irving. And Irving has a wife named Arizona, and she's about the same age, and they both are just cranky as they can be. As a matter of fact, this old guy, Irving, took a cane and knocked out one of my mother's nurses, and she went down there and got that cane, and she broke it across his bed, right by his head, and she told him, "I will beat you to death with this cane if you hit another one of my girls." And so this guy started paying attention to mother and behaving. And so their son came in. And they have a son named Curtis. Now, put the name together. Their son is Curtis LeMay, 4-star Air Force General, Chief of the Joint Chiefs, designer of the B-52 Stratofortress, founder of Strategic Air Command, or Nuclear Retaliatory Defenses. And that is his dad in bed that my mother's in charge of. And so he has to go through my mother to see his dad. And he likes coming up there about 3 o'clock in the morning because he had a paparazzi problem. And so he and my mother got to know each other. And the timing was interesting. He had just ran as vice president with, oh my God, the guy's running for George Wallace. And George Wallace got shot. And anyway, they lost the election. That was November 1968. Well, I've been working on all this formulations, and I had 93 pages in this book of all these formulas for fusion containment. And it was everything from quantum physics, differential mechanics, to applied and theoretical sides of different stratums. But anyhow, my mother was talking to General LeMay, and he asked her about her sons, and she goes, well, the first two sons are just kind of normal. That third one's really strange. You got to keep an eye on him. He's always building these rockets. And he goes, rockets, really? And he launches it. Oh, it's these flying rockets. Yeah, he launches it out in Calfield. And he's constantly working something. And then General LeMay asked her, does he keep notes in a notebook? She goes, yeah, he does. So I go to bed at 11 o'clock because I got to go to school next morning. So my mother went to work, and she didn't say a word to me. She took my notebook with me. And LeMay opens it up, and he starts reading it. And he has enough education where he picked up on it. And he just turned to my mother and asked her, do you have a copier? He copies, thank God he only didn't get it all. He only copied about a fourth of my book, and gave her the book, and she brought it back home, and I went to school. I never even knew this was done. And then General LeMay went to a place in Columbus, Ohio. We were in Mount Vernon, Ohio. He had about 45, 50-minute car ride. He went over to Columbus to Battelle Memorial, and he gave them my notes and asked them, is this anything or it's just chicken scratch? And they came back, who is it? Where is this person working? He's flying rockets out in cow fields. And they went, holy crap. So, LeMay asked, is there something to this? Yeah, this guy's working on fusion containment. It's not a guy, it's a kid. So they invited me to Battelle. I met LeMay, and he brought me to Battelle and Battelle Memorial, and they asked me a lot of questions, and things were never the same after that. In about 2 months, on January 6th, 1969, I get a knock on the front door, and there's this full-bird colonel standing there named Colonel Arthur Bailey Williams, and he is the XO of General LeMay, and he said, I'm here to help you put together everything you need to assemble this fusion rocket. And I went, are you serious? And,
yeah, how old were you at that time? I mean...
I was 15. And I said, is this a joke? And he goes, no, we're quite serious. I said, well, do you want to sit down and write a grocery list? And we did, and I just wrote down everything I could possibly think of, starting out with a very particular vacuum chamber that I needed. It was huge. And I had a facility. I said, I have a facility we could work in. And what my parents had bought this home, and at the other end of the property was a commercial garage. You've seen commercial dealerships. You know, they're big buildings, garages. And my parents just let me move in there, and because of big shops and everything. So it was just great. So he came in and looked around. He said, well, we need to remodify this, need to build this, build that. And I said, wait a minute, you're talking about major construction, reconstruction of this building. And he goes, yeah, you don't worry about paying for it. It's already paid for. he had the entire iron triangle at his fingertips. So we started in and we reconstructed that building until it was the weirdest thing. They built this big bay on the inside, and all the windows were covered with panels, and you can't see in. And then they built this sliding door that went down parallel of the grease pits, so you could slide this sliding wall and latch it in place, and you'd never know this huge bay area in the back was there. And you go outside, and you can't really tell that, there's a big area inside that you never saw. So anyway, that became the hub of the assembly area where we assembled Pithlum. And then we started farming everything out. And, man, there was everybody. I remember crates coming in from National Lawrence Livermore Laboratories, Los Alamosis, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Battelle Memorial ran. I mean, it was just everybody. And I had a small workforce of Air Force personnel. I asked them to, they loved this, I asked them to wear blue jeans and plaid shirts because I can't have them hanging around Air Force uniforms, all day long at my place. So they looked like regular people, and we conducted our work. And 26 and a half months later, we assembled Pithlum. And all the special machines. This
is in the 70s.
Yeah.
And you had a limited amount of alloys. Metallurgy, my dad's an engineer. Metallurgy has surged in the last 50 years. So,
boy, it has.
And, there's stuff that can take higher temperatures than you have. What was your primary... you're beyond all the melting points of metals anyway. So how, with your containment field and what you had to work with back then, what was your primary metal?
Well, that's the strangest thing. There was this alloy, and it was very limited. There wasn't a whole lot of it, just only about a couple tons of it. And it's collected only in one place. It's in England. And it's called carbonite. Now, I said this on Coast to Coast, and all these expert idiots and morons immediately said, oh, that's what they froze Han Solo in, and this guy's full of shit. I said, no, I pronounce words a little differently. We're down here in the South where y'all is singular and all y'all is plural. So it's carbonite, and let me spell it, Carnite, carbonite. Now, the stuff that Han Solo was in was carbonite, Carbonite. Mine can be found. Look it up on the internet. It's in England only. Now there's none of it really existing because I used it all. And I had it sent, and I've never seen any metal like that in my life. It was an alloy composition, and here's the strange thing. It's coming straight out of the iron triangle, and the originators of the alloy is unknown, and it's from World War II. I don't even know how to explain that one to you, but that's the way it is. And the metal...
Did your designs, your rocket designs, have a knot? They have to have a nozzle of some kind, right?
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, I have to find a way to get an opening inside a figure-8 pattern, and so I can release a charge particle beam. Will open one end of one of the cyclotrons, and that will become that orifice that I opened up with that particle beam. In rocket terminology, that's called specific impulse. That's where your nozzle is, and that's where the opening of the field was. But I also had to figure out a way to extend the field outside the openings and on down past the fins, because I didn't want my fins to be staring at the heat of the sun. So I had to channel part of the, it's really cool that configuring it, but I used a crystal formation like a lens formation to extend the containment field out past the body of the rocket so we wouldn't burn the body of the rocket. Because basically what I'm going to do is open up a running reactor for just about 3 seconds, but it's going to be staring at the power of a thermonuclear detonation chain reaction, an H-bomb. So I'm going to pull the cork out of the end of a magnetic bottle and let an H-bomb out. And it sounds crazy and freaked out Colonel Williams, but I explained to him it's only going to be it's a controlled detonation is what it is, controlled burst, and we're going to direct it straight up. And that's how it's put it simple, how I came up with the idea for it as a medium rocket was playing with a balloon. I was blowing it up and letting it fly around the room, go over and pick it up, blow it up, and fly. And I realized I could use that same principle of Newtonian laws. For every opposite, there's an equal and opposite reaction until it's acted upon by an outside external force. So that's exactly what I did, a rocket engine. And so I have a nuclear fusion containment power plant as an engine in this rocket, and we're going to expose that pad to the power of the sun. And it was an interesting day that day, to say the least. But I thought we wasn't going to go into this. That's what my story's about. By the way, there's a documentary that's in the very final stages of editing. We've been at it for over 10 years on this thing. And in about 2 weeks, God, it sounds like Money Pit. Remember, in 2 weeks, I hear that all the time. I've been saying this for years, and that's 2 weeks. But for God's sake, in 2 weeks, middle of July, we'll be done, and we'll can sell this documentary. And a production company called Human Race Productions, love that name, they filmed the thing. They've been on it all these years, and they followed me everywhere through 7 different states, going back 46 years, 2,500 road miles. And the reason this is so different from any documentary you've seen on me is I'm the guy that did it. They were willing to take the time and money, and I was willing to take them to the places if they'd hang with it, because I've had these so-called researchers like Stanton Freeman said they researched me. Well, then how come when we did this documentary, we found all these real people that were there 46 years ago, and they're old, but they were there and they remember me doing all this stuff. So I asked them if they ever heard of Stanton Freeman. They said no. So how could you research me if you never talked to my contacts? Yeah, I'd like to hear that explanation. But anyway, we have all these people in film, and we got all this hardcore documents, and the reason why I'm the only person that knows where everything happened 46 years ago. Stan Freeman don't even know where to start to investigate me. I mean, give me a break. I mean, it's stupid. So I took this camera crew to all these different places, and we met up. We either found documents or we found people, and it's all on camera. The first place I told them to go is you want to go to Ashland, Ohio. And they go, why is that? Well, that's where the library is of the congressman that was in charge of everything, Congressman Ashbrook. And they went, really? I said, yeah. So we drove there, and they got the cameras running. We get out of the car, walk through the parking lot, go up to the front of the big building. There's the curator. He meets us, takes us back there, spins a big wheel on the vault, opens it up, comes out with these letters, lays the first letter on the table. The camera goes right down to it. And you know what the letter says? It has the congressional letterheads all over it. It's from Congress to me, and it's John Ashbrook's office, and it said, Dear David, while John Ashbrook is out running for president of the United States, that's 1972, or 72. So then we're in the process of obtaining the Titan missile for you. Now stop everything right there. I said, "Do you see what we were reading? What they just said? We're in the process of obtaining the Titan missile for you. That's a 130-foot tall intercontinental ballistic missile, the most powerful nuclear deterrent we have in our United States arsenal, and it's state of the art. It takes a full military unit to move the damn thing. It's got twin 500,000-pound thrusting engines on it, and the letter is dated June 10th, 1970. I'm born in 1954. How old am I? I'm 15 years old, and you're handing a Titan missile over to me. Don't you find that a little odd, signed by Congress?
Wow.
And that's what the producer said something other words, colorful reference to cows, but she went, I said, you like that letter? Well, look at the other 13 behind it. And it's my whole story in the letters, in the records of Congress. That's as far as you have to go to research my story. But anyway, they photograph all the letters, and that's how the whole thing started. And we just went from there, and it took us years to regroup through things, and we found all this stuff. So it's in a documentary. You can see all this stuff. And you look at it, and like that letter, how do you Photoshop that letter? How do you Photoshop the curator of a congressional records library vault? And then it just goes on and on. There's really cool things in there. Social Security was really fun. But the thing is, I documented everything that I've said, and it all checks out. So that surprised the producer of the film. She was expecting to turn into a debunker and bust me, but she just started all this stuff one after another, checked out, and she goes, "Holy smokes, do you mean to tell me this story's true?" I went, "No, I've been lying to you all this time."
All these years, yeah.
Yeah, why in God's name? And Art Bell said it best. He said he wanted to know my story, and I said, "All right, it's going to take us a while." It took us from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., 7 hours nonstop. We went at it and finally got my story out. There's so many characters, so many events, so many details, and and Art said to the critics, said, "If the man was lying up here, why in God's name would he make a 7-hour lie? Knowing all we got to do is play the tapes back years later, see where he misses." Well, over the years, they've played tapes constantly over the originals, and I've never aired. It's just,
I've heard the story on two different hosts' show, and it was the same story. I could tell, though, about 15 years after the first one, is like, okay, I'm basically sick of telling this story.
I am. Oh, God, I hate telling this story. It's just, I love talking about the SHIELD Act, and there's a couple other projects I'm working on that's really cool. But
can you talk about them? Or are they in a preliminary state that you don't want to let out the cat out of the bag?
No, there's this one, the Gamma Ray Creation Project. That's been a fun thing to work on. And the name of it, people go, "Man, that sounds like something science fiction. What are you doing?"
Yeah, making the whole.
I said the Gamma Ray Creation Project. What are you Frankenstein? You're building some kind of life form? I went, "No, but I'm looking for one." I said, what happened was I got a call from Northwestern University years ago, and their in vitro department, where they trying to get women pregnant, right? Well, they got a problem. They get a tray of eggs, and they fertilize them, and half the tray doesn't live, and the other half that they work with, they just can't find the eggs to take. And it's very frustrating on the woman. It's a really emotional situation. So I just happened, because of my work as a technology transfer consultant, I take space technology that we've created to solve a problem in space with, and I redesign it and put it into commercial application. No big deal. One of the most famous examples, Tang. Nasty tasting orange stuff.
Oh, God.
But anyway, Yeah. So that was one of the first, but there's a lot cooler ones I did since then. But anyhow, I knew of a way that we could hook up the cameras on a microscopic level that when the sperm enters the egg, it excites the zinc on the surface of the egg, and it will cause an actual, there'll be a phosphorus connection which will attack to the surrounding molecules, and you'll get a flash. So I said, look, there's the flashes. I go, what's that? That's the sperm entering the egg. And I said, the ones that flash the brightest, that's the eggs you want to use. And they went, what's wrong with you people? I went, holy God, David, you just photographed the spark of life. And I went, oh, I did? Well, I'm just trying to find the eggs that will light up for you. And he went, Jesus. I said, I guess I'm done here. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take this project one step further. And I told them what I'm going to do. And they go, are you serious? I went, yeah, where'd you get that idea? In a dream? So I had this dream, and what I did, I took the in vitro machine when photographing the sperms entering the eggs. And by the way, it really did well for the in vitro process because they were able to pick out the very best of the eggs, discard the rest, and they had a very good success rate at impregnating women, and everybody was happy. So I was glad that worked. But I took this machine, the original design did for them, and I augmented it, and I put it inside a cloud chamber. Now, do you know what a cloud chamber is? You can go to like people can go to a museum like Griffin Observatory in L.A., and you'll see a big table sitting in the middle of the room. You'll see a plexiglass shields over it, and you'll see this fog in there, and you'll see streaks going through there. And you're looking around and go, where are these streaks coming from? Well, they're coming from through the roof. And what they are, they're gamma ray particles. It's been traveling billions of light years and billions of miles in space, and they come through that roof, and they go through that chamber, leaving a streak in the gas, and it goes out through the bottom of the table, through the floor, and into the earth, and it goes a few feet, and that's the end of it. But here's my theory. Here's what this whole device. So I've got I'm watching an egg, watching a sperm go in the egg, and I'm trying to catch, at serendipity, you imagine how hard this is, to catch a gamma ray particle coming through at the right time where the gamma ray particle and the sperm go into the egg simultaneously. Because once the sperm goes in, it seals off the egg. So what's happening in real life? Well, you fertilize the egg, you put it back in the host. She's at the grocery store walking down the aisle, and just as her sperm is about to enter an egg, she walks right into the path of a gamma ray particle, and they both go in and get sealed in. And my theory is this: if you take that egg out or leave it in the host and the baby's born, you watch that child real close, and if it grows up to what I think is happening, that is where they come from. Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Newton, Hawkins, Einstein. That's where they come from. It's that little sperm and that gamma ray goes into that egg, and it starts, God knows what the gamma ray is carrying with it, encoding, and that could be where your super smart people come from. Just pure serendipity. That's why there's only a handful of them throughout centuries.
Well, the gamma ray is also the most radioactively active. It's the most dangerous of the radioactive particles, right? It seemed like I'm trying to think back to my power plant orientation on the Nimitz. It's like alpha and beta were easier to block, but gamma goes through everything.
It does, and but by the time it gets to the surface of the Earth, of all the things going through, once it goes through us, it goes into the Earth. It only goes about 2 feet, and that's the end of it. So it's at the very end of its run, and the woman lines up perfect. The egg goes in, the sperm goes in the egg, the gamma ray particle goes with the sperm, closes up, and I think that might be an answer and because of XY chromosome, it does favor the X more, so that's why you really have more, well-known scientists that are men than women, but that doesn't mean the women don't exist. They certainly are brilliant out there. But I think with the XY chromosome, the X is overriding on this. Or it could be just biased men writing history and don't want to write about the smart women. So,
Rosalind Franklin, who
yeah,
basically had, she actually discovered the structure of DNA, but didn't know what she was looking at. Watson and Crick saw her stuff. It's like, oh, we can steal this.
Yeah, so, no, women are there's some really smart women, and they're coming down to the same road. I think the others are. It's just not as quite as many females, but they're out there. And
now, are you running into any kind of ethical? Okay, if this technology shows up, I mean, how are you ethically able to test?
Well, first of all,
strictly an in vitro.
I'm just an in vitro process, and because I give the sperm and the egg back to the donor, the original donors, and it's all it did was just try to photograph when we catch a gamma ray particle that's going in. So I'm not really evaluating any ethical things. I'm just no more than in vitro does. And I'm not even doing a process as bad as Octomom did, where that moron had 16 kids. But no, we're not doing that. We're just we're not interfering. We're just observing the natural process. And it's just one point where we have it external so we can watch it, and then we put it back to the host. So, and I'm not making any modification, changes, alterations, nothing. I'm just
whatever the gamma ray part.
Whatever gamma ray does is what it does. I'm just watching, and so I'm not influencing anything. I'm just observing, and that's all it is. It's a theory. I'm testing out my theory. My theory is I think I know where all these super smart people come from, and why there's just a few of them throughout the generations. We don't have thousands of them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
The fact that we remember Tesla, Einstein, it'll be Stephen Hawking. These people, they shine. They're exceptions to the average.
If I can get a track of these, unfortunately, this kind of research would outlive me. But if somebody would follow through, pick it up and follow it, and then follow some of these fetuses that grow up. Dang, I may be right. I don't know. It's just something to fool to fun with, and to really get some great images though. Holy smokes! And to watch the flash, the spark of life when the sperm enters the egg. That thing's pretty cool. I was thinking of producing some of the photos and blow them up and sell them because you should see it. You look at it and go, what is that? It looks like exploding atoms. It looks like something in quantum physics. And when actually it's the most essential basics of life. It's a sperm entering an egg, but what a flash it makes.
And that's what the zona pellucida, once a single sperm gets through, that chemical reaction has to take place in order to keep other, it's rare, but every once in a while two get through, but for the most part,
in that flash, what happens
one gets through, that shuts the valve off, so to speak.
Yeah, and it throws a shield up because then all of the zinc around it will flash and harden and becomes a seed encased pod, and your fetus starts. It's very cool the way the whole thing works, but
now, what
anyway,
what kind of tech are you having to use to see that spark? I mean, that sounds like we used to have something way back in the early days when I was first starting to be a med tech for counting a scintillation counter. I haven't seen one. God, I haven't seen. They used to be the reference method, but I think they've moved on to immunoassays now.
Yeah, people think it's the Star Trek stuff I'm doing. I went, no, man, it's actually ancient history. This is stuff used years and decades ago. But now put it in a cloud chamber, that's a little different twist. Not too many. I don't think anybody's ever talked about that. But anyway, that's what I'm looking at. It's called a gamma ray creation project. It's sitting over here in the corner of the lab. It's just a fun thing to play with. And friends went, "Man, David, you got some strange toys in here." Yeah, I had to build them all. But
yeah, that's what you end up having to do if you look for something in the MLab catalog or something. It's like, no way, because you're paying for a lot of FDA regulation. A thermometer out of one of my lab supply catalogs would probably be $160 for a calibrated mercury thermometer. It's like, holy crap.
It's amazing though what you can get. I ordered from Amazon uranium. You look it up. You can order uranium from Amazon. I did, and I use it to calibrate my Geiger counters.
I've got a question from Craig in the Spreaker chat room, and he wants to know when you will be ready to share your fusion tech with the world.
Very simple. On the day I die, you'll get it through open source from the web. It's in several different places around the planet, and the reason I have it set up that way is insurance. Believe me, the big people, they don't want me to die. They want me to live forever. They don't want this information out. But I've set it up with other entities that will be able to release it. I didn't have the web back in 1971, so this is really cool.
Right.
Because I was putting it all together going, how am I going to get this out to everybody? And then I got enlightened to open source on the web, and I went, man, this is going to work good. So there's a real basket of goodies hanging there for you guys. But it also insurance for me. They don't want me to get ran over by a car or fall down in a bar of soap in the bathtub, because that means when this stuff comes out, it's really going to cause it's so complete. You get the manuals right down to what screws you need to put everything together.
How hard? I mean, is this something that?
Any independent. Well, yeah, it's going to have to be a little sophisticated lab or a really smart person at home, but any independent lab would be able to build the thing, get the same results I got, thereby validating the technology. And that's all I need. And then after that, it's on the web. Anybody can have it. Clean thermal fusion power.
With the kind of heats and pressures you've got.
It's definitely. You better get your magnetic fields right, but I've got the math laid out there, and the theorems and the mathematical models are in 3D CAD/CAM form. There's no way you can miss it, and your containment shields will hold, because you don't want your shield to drop, because you're looking at 100 million degrees centigrade. If you do, it's going to be real warm in there quick.
Well, with this kind of fusion, you would actually be able to synthesize. We're talking about the kind of heat and pressure where you could maybe modify it a little bit and create heavier elements, gold. I
was thinking, it crossed my mind, and I could also. What I really wanted to replicate is a potential fuel source. It occurs naturally on the sun because of heat and pressure, but with the third isotope of helium-3. Helium-3 comes off the sun, distributed through the solar system by the solar winds. That really doesn't make it here to Earth because of the Van Allen radiation belts and all the atmospheres layers. But on the moon, there's no atmosphere. And the moon dust is saturated with helium-3. Did you know that?
I've heard that speculated, but I never heard anybody with any credibility like yourself actually say that.
Oh God, yes. Helium-3 is all over the surface of the moon. Matter of fact, better keep an eye on Japan and China. they're building robot probes, and it's not hard to do. You fire a robot to the moon, and it solves impacts with retro rockets. It lands there. And we're talking about not a small robot, not like the size of a coffee table. We're talking about something big as a house. And it's a processing facility. It'll land on the moon. It'll run across the surface, scooping up about the first 2 or 3 inches of soil. It'll throw that soil into a hopper and turn it to the sun. It'll get up to about 200, 250 degrees. Then this gas will come out of the soil, and they roll it over to the shadow side of the vehicle where it's 200 below zero, and that gas condenses into a liquid, and you put it in these little cylinders, which fits into this rocket body thing, and it fires it from the moon back up to the mothership, and it racks up these cylinders, and then the mothership comes home, lands in the ocean, parachutes, and you have gallons of helium-3. And I mean, man, that's going to rock.
With the lack of atmosphere, or the thinness of the lunar atmosphere, you can make a pretty easy mass driver to get the stuff in orbit. You're not facing the same orbital
That's exactly
problems.
right.
You don't have the same escape velocity.
Well, and people go, how much would you have to get up? 1 ton of ore, 1 ton of lunar oil, would give you enough helium-3 to run the nuclear power plants down here to match the entire needs of America for eternity. Let's see. Well, 1 ton, you'll get about 2 years out of it. How much is on the surface of the moon, front and back? It's eternity of amount of fuel of helium-3. So Japan and China's got their eyes on helium-3. They're going to be going after it. And, we discovered it.
How do we actually convert? We've got a fused ion here. We've got the H3 or helium-3. What do you have to do to use this thing?
You mean once you've got the...
how do you utilize it once you've got it?
Yeah. Well, you coat, you can use it with conventional reactors, which I wouldn't want to use. Mine doesn't have it. But pile rods. You build pile rods with helium-3 saturated within the rod, and then apply the pile rod in a normal fashion, run it into the reactor, and the differential is going to give you that power, the heat that you need. And but there's other better, more efficient ways with fusion containment power plants. You would use 2 particles of it that would be, my God, not even the size of a baby pea, and you would annihilate that thing in an annihilation process, and it would give you tremendous power off of an annihilation process. Of course, that's when you're running at 100 million degrees centigrade. Now, keep in mind,
up with a way. It occurs to me that somebody ought to be researching how to use the toxic leftovers from our fission process.
Oh yes,
some kind of way to.
I've got some very hungry reactors that you build one of my reactors that can be portable, and you drive it up to Yucca Mountain, and you take all the waste out of the Yucca Mountain, feed it into the reactor. At 100 million degrees centigrade, there's nothing left. I mean, not even atoms. Nothing's left. It's total annihilation. So that means you burn all that waste up, and there's no radiation left. And you get all the power out of it, energy release, channel it through your power systems into heat, so you can turn the steam generators, and there's your power. So yeah, my process would eat the nasty leftovers, the waste products of the fission reactors. So you get power in exchange for rid of waste. Not a bad deal. And that will happen.
Good idea.
It is, and it's and I've got all the instruction plans on how to do it on the open source. So, yeah, hopefully, if I get the SHIELD Act in place, up and running, and then drop the rest of the stuff on open source, then I would have left this place in better shape than when I found it, which is what I always wanted to do. And if you notice, I'm not charging anything for this stuff. It's all going out free, and everybody gets it. Yeah, that means North Korea, Iran, Russia, China, everybody gets it for free off the web.
Well, that way nobody's trying to cut each other's throats for it.
That's right. And
well.
No one country should own this process. It's just too damn powerful. So what you do, you put it on open end and let it go through the web, and everybody gets it for free. So everybody is equal, and you want everybody using it because that will stop building up more waste of the other products, of the other processes.
So it seems like once you have a good, easy, clean fusion power,
who would not want?
Yeah, you break the oil is just for lubricants now and plastics.
That's exactly right.
You don't need to take it and burn it up in your cars, and you open up all new industries for. It's not going. It's going to displace people, but they're not. They're going to go from one type of energy.
That's right.
Into another.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to have all these oil workers and coal miners standing around with. Yeah, they're not out of work. They just transition into something that probably
different, and it'll be cleaner and healthier for them. They won't have black lung or the cancerous problems. And yeah, see, that's this. You guys, the world out there. The only thing y'all know about nuclear power. You know everything about the evil twin. That's what you've been working with. That's all you've been working with.
Fission.
Nuclear fission and the fusion of today. What I have is the other twin. This is the good twin. This is the one that everybody's been after. It's been called the Holy Grail of physics. Why I ended up with it, I have no idea. I believe what.
I'm glad somebody did for the sake of my grandchildren. Well, David, we're about to wrap this up. I need to announce that tomorrow night on the show, Ian Holt joins Dave for a look at everything paranormal, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. And David, thank you very much for coming on the show. It was a true honor and a pleasure to have been able to contact you. If anybody wants to get involved with the SHIELD Act, do you have a website? Last 30 seconds, do you have a website or someplace they can go?
Yeah. I will soon have information up on that and americasfallfromspace.com. That's my website. You can see. Also, my documentary will be on sale in a few weeks there. But also, I sent you the addresses of where people are supposed to write to, so they can go to your site and get that info. And send them letters off, people. I tell you, just 10 of you out there. So imagine, I know there's going to be more than 10 people going to write this. They get several hundred letters, and we've got something started. It won't take much. But everybody's write as many as you can. I'd love to drown them like...
Yeah, all you college students listening to us in Noonan, Georgia, get your paper and pen out, and go to the post office and really mail one. It's a stamp. They can help you out there.
It'll be the most significant thing you ever do your entire life, because you could end up saving everybody's life.
And you'll actually see it.
That's just it, man. I'm just here to... I even volunteer to put the thing together. I'm just here to help. I'm not going to license or sell my stuff. I retired at 50. God, if I wanted to be rich, Donald Trump would have to borrow money from me. But I didn't come here for that. I come for fixing things, and that's what we do. I'll leave you guys a basket of fixed goodies here.
All right, we're wrapping it up, and once again, I'd like to thank you very much, and thank you all for listening tonight. And like I said, I will post these addresses to the different SOR sites around the world, so we can if they get it from Australia or they get Canada, we're all on this boat together.
Yeah, it is. Good night.